Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks to the Black Hat for invitation, and thank you all for attending. And also thanks Lucas for teaching us tune our presentation. And today we are going to introduce our new research, Privacy Detective. It's a dynamic privacy analysis tool based on FRIDA. So considering our company's main business, this tool is designed only for Android devices. But this innovation algorithm could be commonly applied to multiple platforms, and we hope our insights will inspire you some new and productive ideas. Let's begin. Okay, let me talk about ourselves for a little bit. Abby lead the development of this tool, and he specialized in reverse, Linux, and SOC security. He has a long-standing interest in mobile security and privacy, and he enjoys car racing and CSGO during his free time. So I'm Maggie, a security researcher at Oppo, and I specialized in security certifications and oversee security compliance. I've played a role in this tool, and I'm currently got an interest in AI security, and we can talk offline if you are interested too. So I also enjoy sports when I'm stressed out, and I especially like hiking and city walk. Beside us, we also have three very great contributors. Warning Wang, she's a master student from School of Cybersecurity at Huazhong University of Science and Technology. And Xianling Wu, a cybersecurity expert. He's a CVE contributor to QCOM, MediaTek, and Android. And we got Daniel Chen. He has more than 10 years experience in security. Okay. Now that you have a better understanding of us, let's exploring why we're doing this and what we are going to achieve by designing and developing this tool. So for our company, we are facing the trails from GDPR. GDPR imposes stringent requirements for data protection. Complying with GDPR regulation is crucial for not only protecting the privacy of individuals, but also maintaining trust among our organizations. There are increasing amounts of regions have published the GDPR-like regulations after 2018, and about 83% countries have enacted data privacy laws by March 2023. They vary greatly in content, but many continue to show the strong influence of EU's GDPR. So at least 20 other countries without data privacy laws currently have bills for such new laws. So here are some laws and regulations that you may be familiar. It's also important to recognize the serious consequences of non-compliance. GDPR violations can result in hefty fines, which have severe impact of companies' finances. The maximum fines of GDPR violation is 20 million or 4% of a company's global annual revenue, whichever is higher. So they can have long-lasting effects on a company's bottom line. From the cumulative graph on the left, on the bottom left, you can see that by December 2023, though the number of fines are stably increasing, the sum of fines have been growing dramatically. So I won't speculate here, but you can do the math. And beside this, we also see that the inspections are not only enforced in telecoms, but also all areas companies, even a clothes factory who violated the data protection, have been fined more than 3 million euro. Therefore, it's essential that we take GDPR compliance seriously and prioritize the privacy and security of personal data in everything we do. So the consequences of non-compliance are simply too great to ignore. Okay, so here's the end of our company's challenges. And my company have already dived deep into the regulations for a year, and here are the main requirements that our tool can guarantee. So by using this tool that we are going to introduce, any non-compliance behavior like using TLS 1.1 and transport private data without double encryption should be detected and reported clearly. Moreover, as a user, imagine a scenario when you talk to your friend, like share something, and some 3P e-commerce apps can sometimes pop up the exact items that you may require. Like personally, I've once talked to my friend that I'm heading to Singapore, and my flight app just pushed the notifications about Singapore's tickets on sale. So it's kind of creepy for me, and it seems there is an eye on me. So we did curious about how does these apps get my demand at the very first place. So since I have already turned off all the unnecessary permissions. And also, it turns out not only my concern, I did a little background research. According to Global Consumer Insight Survey, June 2023, from PwC, nearly half of customers said that they are extremely or very concerned when engaging with social media, considering about the privacy. And the concern is also high regarding the retailers. Okay. So in conclusion, the motivation of this research comes from the company's global strategy and part of our curiosity of how these push notifications accomplishment. In order to solve our questions, we aimed to capture all the transportation data and detect any violations. Okay. So before we explain our research, you may need the following preparations that I show on the slide. Quite easy, right? And the most expensive and important one is we highly recommend you to have an emotional stable security researcher. Okay. In this part, I will introduce the functions and architecture of the privacy detective. Then we will explain why we build each function and how it works. For your understanding, we will explain the order of data collection, data processing, and data analysis. Here are the functions that privacy detective supported. The simple architecture diagram is on the right. You can see in diagram data flows from Android system to our tool. And we divided our tool into 3 parts, in orange, blue, and pink blocks respectively. It follows the order of our explanation that I just mentioned, the collection, processing, and analysis. The main point lies on data processing. So you can see that our supported functions in the middle 3 comes from data processing section is decrypt TLS, decrypt nested encryption, and decode H2 header. So generally, we try to hook TCP-TLS and cipher data by FreeDA from Android runtime and native libraries in the data collection layer. Okay, after that, it goes to the data processing layer for decryption. And finally, the tool will scan and generate the output files. So first, data collection. In order to get a whole TCP traffic data, we hook the socket output and input stream at java.net in Android runtime. Then, we invoke the following method to get the TCP information, like IPs and ports, shown here. As we show on the right, you can see how the data flows from Android runtime, indicating yellow block, to our tool, which are shown in orange. Great. Please note that we get thread ID from Android OS here. Right? Okay. After we do these things, here shows one of our captured TCP packages. You can notice in the last line tag str string, its value is some encrypted data, right? So which is obviously a TLS data. So the next step is to get the TLS data by hook SSL read and write. And we invoked some other functions to get more SSL info as we done in TCP hook. We obtained SSL sequence number, thread ID, and TLS version in this part. If you remember carefully in the background section I just read, in order to comply with GDPR, we need to detect all transmissions whose TLS version is lower than 1.2. So same here on the left, you can see in purple block, we get SSL info from libSSL, and the data flows from native library to our tool. Note again, we get thread ID from libc in this part. And here is our captured SSL data. In the last line, tag str, you can see that, not like the last TCP package, its value is plain text. So, and Abby will unveil the secret of thread ID in the next section, but we can keep on data collection here. Let's assume that we have captured all the TCP streams and decrypt the TLS connections in them. So we will get the TCP data, which is totally plain text, right? But do you remember that GDPR's requirement we mentioned? Apps are suggested to double encrypt the personal data during transportation. So which means we may find a lot of nested encryption within TLS. In addition to obtain plain text for double encryption, we hook the cipher class at update and do final functions. In case other demands, we also hook the choose provider to get cipher parameters. Update is the function that is used to encrypt the trunked block, while do final applies the requested pending to the last block. And one small tip here. High-level speaking, we can hook those two functions, then get the plain text and the cipher from its input and output hook point. However, there is one tricky problem that I want to emphasize here. The cipher class may invoke byte buffer. The byte buffer inherits from Java class buffer. It has 3 essential properties, and we would focus on position. A buffer's position is the index of the next element to be read. As shown just now in the animation, in original workflow, it starts from the position and read the requested length. Move position, return an array when it's doing reading. So, what the hook flow should be? So once we hook it, right, in order to get a return array, we will invoke byte buffer to read the cipher block. Then, issue occurred here. After hook, the original code will deal with the wrong position and get the wrong cipher. Therefore, small but important, please always remember to reset the position to its original workflow. Okay? So after we obtained all blocks, we split them together to get a cipher and the plain text. And here is one of our results. You can find the plain hex with its matched crypto. Also, we added the decoded string in the middle. Other text shows the encryption parameters such as algorithm in the first line, it's AES, and the AVI in the last line. So guess what? If you noticed carefully, you may find that there is a nested encryption within a nested encryption. It's a triple encryption. So don't panic. You actually can find the plain text of this weather location in the same report under another bracket. And here is the end of our data collection. Let's collect our thoughts. So what did we get so far? We got the TCP stream with IP, ports, and a thread ID. And we also got the TLS stream with sequence number, SSL version, and thread ID. Lastly, we get the split the cipher block and its matched plain text. I'll pause here, move the micro to Abby, and he will introduce our core innovation about how to decrypt the TCP.
Okay, thanks Maggie. On the last section, we have captured all data what we need. Then it's time to discuss how we use this data to unlock the encrypted treasures. Obviously, the most glittering treasure is TLS, and here is the time-based TCP and TLS data sequence in a single connection. Nevertheless, how do TCP and TLS relate to each other? Let's dive into TCP and TLS workflow. So, in a single TCP and TLS connection, imagine that I'm the client and I want to send something to the server by TLS. Then what happens in this process? Firstly, I need to prepare the plain text, and then input it into SSL write. After completing at least one blocking encryption, I will obtain the ciphertext. Finally, I will invoke TCP send to send the cipher to the server. Then the server receives my packet. It will send back a response. And as I get the response by TCP receive, I need to input the cipher into SSL read to decryption. Then I obtain the plaintext for response. After I explain what is in a single TLS connection, we can find that there are 4 different types of packet. 2 of the TCP types, TCP receive and TCP send, and the other 2 are SSL types, SSL read and SSL write. In conjunction with what I briefly described on my previous slide, in the context of TCP sequence, one TCP receive will follow one or multiple SSL read, and one or multiple SSL write must follow a TCP send. Thus, based on this conclusion, we can list 4 possible combinations that will occur, like I highlighted on the right. So, when we get a time-based data sequence, we can use the combinations to pair TLS and TCP data for decryption in a single connection. Just like the animation shows, I think we have opened the treasure of TLS. Maybe. But it's true? No, it's too young, too simple, and sometimes naive. When you use the key to open the treasure confidently, we will get a time-based data sequence on the right. And you should notice that it's disorganized. So what happened? Why? Because in a real world, one app or service may have multiple TCP connections. Therefore, we get a disordered sequence which is combined all data of different connections. And if we want to decrypt the TLS data as the method on last slide, we should divide the sequence of different connections into single connections. So, as far as we know, TCP is a stateful connection. One TCP connection just has a only group of IPs and ports. Thus, we can uniquely identify one TCP connection use this group of things. But does our division problem get solved? Theoretically, we can match the IP and port in TLS and TCP. However, sadly no, bro. When you want some red wine, you found just rough green. In practice, we get the IP and port easily in TCP layer, but we can't obtain the IP and port in Android's OpenSSL. And then, we try to get socket FD to parse the IP and port. Nevertheless, the socket FD always returns null. And we also try to use a more fundamental information blocking I/O, but it can't parse IP and port yet. After experiments above, we found that, for some reason, Android doesn't give any information about IP and port to OpenSSL. So is it time to give up the treasure in front of us? Don't give up, man. You are an emotional stable researcher. Why don't we go in another direction? Forget the IP and port and think about why we need them. Yes, sure. We use them to divide the TCP connections. And if there is another thing could connect the TCP and TLS data, should we suppose that TCP layer will invoke OpenSSL in same thread? Let's move to thread ID and take an experiment. As what you can see of the result on the right, the thread ID does divide the TCP connections into connection segments. So we can imagine that in one thread, only one TCP connection happens. TCP and TLS are sequentially invoked, as the animation shows. But please be careful. One TCP connection is not necessarily happened within a thread. Please be careful. Yes. Using the TLS decryption algorithm with the connections divided by thread ID, we have opened the treasure of TLS. We have got all the plaintext from TCP. However, some strange data are in our output file. Thus, there is any other encryption ignored by us. Then, we analyzed the context of this connection. we confirmed that it's a H2 connection, and the strange data is a header compressed by H2, which is a major feature of it. So, for a more convenient experience for the researchers, we decide to provide a decompress function in our tool. But we don't suggest you to implement the algorithm to decompress the H2 header as RFC 7540 defined. Why do I say that? As I was an emotional stable security researcher, I try to implement it, and I think you can guess the rest of the story. So let's use the existing libraries. The H2 library is designed for forward communication. Actually, we got the data in reverse. Therefore, we need to divide one connection into two parts. One is client and the other is server, to simulate a real communication process. For more convenient, then we get a decompressed header like the picture shows. You can see that at the tag of string, it's a decompressed H2 header. And let's move on. Let's review the result we have gotten so far. A plain text of TCP data, which has been decrypted, the TLS and the nested encryption, and decompressed the H2 header. So it's time for some analysis. Because this data is too massive, we used a self-developed regex-based script to scan the plaintext. It included the patterns of ID, GPS, URL, IP, keys, and so on. But we highly recommend researchers to have their own scan rules for a more customized scanning experience. And now it's time to share our findings. By the way, we have hidden a few sensitive information in the pics we display. So as you can see, some application transmitted a list of apps in double encryption. When you have installed the given apps, it will perform different actions. In this list, you will find that there are so many apps relating to secure analysis and privacy protecting, like X-Privacy. It can prevent you from privacy data leaking, and the application seems are applying anti-analysis techniques. This bad app may detect its environment, compare it with the list, and hide the malicious code to evade the analysis. But we can refuse the permission of access package list yet. In addition, we found that some apps send circle command directly. Their developers may believe that the transmission of nested encrypted circle command is secure and reduce the risk of attack. However, allowing direct execution of circle command still raises the risk of circle injection. So personally, I recommend developers to use parameterized query instead. And in this app, as we showed, the big brother is watching you, bro. It tried to get a huge number of IDs, such as Android ID, BSS ID, Mac, IMEI, and so on. Although the privacy policy on Android 14 has rejected some access of the tracking tags, but the app is working really hard, and it still gets some usable tags. However, thanks heaven, man, do dodge a bullet that the tags were double encrypted before sending. There are too many negative examples. Let's say a sample which is not bad. From the hostname and path, we can presume that it's a weather app. As a weather app, it used a key exchange algorithm to implement the nested encryption. And instead of collecting other tags that could be used for tracking, it simply collected the information about localization. Sure, as I said, that our tool can decrypt the nested encryption. you can find our GPS coordinates, which are highlighted on the screen. Yeah. Wait, one more thing. As we will open source the tool later, we have prepared auto-deploy scripts for researchers. One click to install, one click to push, and one click to run. The scripts will also automatically disable USAP features for stability reasons. Next. Those are all the things we have done, and we are going to do the following. Firstly, add UDP support to that we just supported TCP now. Secondly, add Chrome and Firefox core support. Meanwhile, we need to add a PCAP format file output for its powerful analysis capability. Finally, just for me, I want an exposed version for its stability reason. Then, please take a quick look at the detailed architecture of our tool. You can get this diagram on Black Hat's website in our slides, and I'll give you 1 minute to watch this diagram. On the left is the Android system, and on the right is our tool. We hook the Android runtime and native libraries to get information from cipher, TCP, and TLS, and the thread ID. After we get this data, we have data processing, and then we will analyze this information. So let's move on. Our speech is almost over. There are 3 main takeaways of our presentation. Firstly, with the TLS decryption problem, we can use thread ID and the packet sequence number as a feature to divide chaotic TCP data into a single connection. And then we use the algorithm to decrypt the TLS traffic on Android without IP and port. Furthermore, for decryption of nested encryption, we hooked most implementations of cipher class to get all data about the cipher. Then we restored the double encrypted content. By the way, please be careful with the byte buffer for its feature of reading position. In some cases, you need to reset the position after reading. Okay. The last but not least, to prevent privacy tracking. As shown on the past slides, for Android user, we highly suggest you to use the latest version to obtain the newest security and privacy strategy. Because almost every major release has an enhanced of privacy protection. And I recommend you to practice the principle of least privilege. For example, you should always use runtime permissions as you can, and closer permissions like nearby devices, body sensors, app list, and provide the raw location if possible. So this is the end of our presentation. We are open to any valuable comments. And any question? Any question? Okay, please.
So is there any case that the developer don't use the Java crypto API to do the encryption?
Yes, in some cases, the app use self-developed SO to do the encryption. You need to customize for a single app, but it's yes. And other questions? Okay. So no question? Okay. Due to the time limit, this is the end of our speech. Thank you for all, and wish you have a good day.